Namaste Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Prabhus and Matajis, welcome. We're going to continue reading from the Bhagavatam. We're going to read Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 1st chapter, text 2. We read text 1 yesterday. Welcome to all of you. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Shanti Sahasrasaha Apasyatam Atmatattam Griheshu Grihamedhinam. Seems I'm always allergic to something. Allergic to life. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Shanti Sahasrasaha Apashyatam Atmatattam Griheshu Grihamedinam. I'll read the word meanings. Shrotavyadini, subject matter for hearing. Rajendra, O Emperor. Nrinam, of human society. Shanti, there are. Sahasrashaha, hundreds and thousands. Apasyatam, of the blind. Atmatattvam, knowledge of self, the ultimate truth. Griheshu, at home. Grihamedhinam, of persons too materially engrossed. Translation: those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of the ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society. It follows yesterday's verse in which Parikshit Maharaj was glorified by Sukadeva Goswami for asking such an important and valuable question. What is the purpose? Let's read the question yesterday. My dear king, he's glorified the question. He asked many questions. What is the duty of a man at the time of death? So then in yesterday's verse, first verse, my dear king, your question is glorious. It's very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. And then today's verse again. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of the ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. So you asked the right question. There are many questions you could have asked, or many things that people will talk about, which are absolutely unnecessary to talk about, basically. That's what he's saying. Purport: in the revealed scriptures, there are two nomenclatures for the household life. One is grihastha and the other is grihamedi. So in this verse, the word grihamedi is used. The grihasthas are those who live together with wife and children, but live transcendentally for realizing the ultimate truth. The grihamedis, however, are those who live only for the benefit of the family members, extended or centralized, and thus are envious of others. The word medhi indicates jealousy of others. The grihamedhis, being interested in family affairs only, are certainly envious of others. Therefore, one grihamedi is not on good terms with another grihamedhi, and in the extended form, one community, society, or nation is not on good terms with another counterpart of selfish interest. In the age of Kali, all the householders are jealous of one another because they are blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth. They have many subject matters for hearing: political, scientific, social, economic, and so on. But due to a poor fund of knowledge, they set aside the question of the ultimate miseries of life, namely miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. Factually, the human life is meant for making an ultimate solution to birth, death, old age, and disease. But the grihamedis, being illusioned by the material nature, forget everything about self-realization. The ultimate solution to the problems of life is to go back home, back to Godhead, and thus, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 8:15, the miseries of material existence, birth, death, old age, and disease, are removed. The process of going back home, back to Godhead, is to hear about the Supreme Lord in His name, form, attributes, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Foolish people do not know this. They want to hear something about the name, form, etc. of everything temporary, and they do not know how to utilize this propensity of hearing for the ultimate good. Misguided as they are, they also create some false literatures about the name, form, attributes, etc. of the ultimate truth. One should not therefore become a grihamedhi simply to exist for envying others. One should become a real householder in terms of scriptural injunctions. So, the reason Prabhupada is addressing the materialistic householders is because the word grihamedhi comes up in this verse. And translation in the word-for-word meanings is of persons too materially engrossed. And then Prabhupada, in the purport, contrasts grihastas who live for realizing Krishna, or Prabhupada says here, realizing the ultimate truth. So the purpose of grihasta life is to become Krishna conscious. That's what Prabhupada's saying, or to realize what is the truth, to utilize life for Krishna consciousness or self-realization. The purpose of the grihamedis, Prabhupada explains, is, medhi means, Prabhupada gives the definition of those who are envious of others. Medhi also means center. So the center is not Krishna, but the center is the family. And by being centered on the family, identifying with the family, there's this natural tendency to become, in some way, in competition with other families, or is used here, the word Prabhupada uses here, it said medhi means jealousy of others. So we're interested in our own welfare. Necessarily, if we become too interested in our own welfare, we'll not be so interested in the welfare of others, and we'll necessarily become jealous of them. And then Prabhupada extends this idea, well, if one family is not on good relations with another family, then one community may not be on good relations with another community, and then one nation may not be on good relations with another nation. So basically he's saying, you could expand this in saying that war is just an extension of the grihamedhi consciousness. It starts within the family and then it expands. Interesting concept, right? So a family which is trying to be Krishna conscious, in theory, is not envious of other families, but actually is, you could say, in the ideal sense, supportive, loving, affectionate, or at least sees them equally. Sees them as, well, we're all related, we're brothers and sisters. So, the next point Prabhupada makes is that the qualification of grihamedhi is that they're blind to the process of self-realization. It's not important to them. They may have religion, but self-realization is not important. Loving God is not important. Realizing God is not important. Centering your life on God is not important. So it's not a matter of religion, it's a matter of priority. So then the next point Prabhupada makes is that because of that, because their goal is not self-realization, that will not be the prominent thing that they're going to be thinking about or living for, and thus hearing and speaking about. So therefore, they'll have other things to hear and speak about, because things other than spiritual realization will be interesting to them. And if you look at a newspaper, of course, or magazines, there's so many things to hear about. And so Prabhupada starts to list political, scientific, social, economic, and so on. So you can become very absorbed in hearing. Like we like to say hearing and chanting, but maybe more commonly we'll say speaking. We don't really think you're chanting, well, you're chanting politics, you're chanting sports. Well, I guess in a sense you are. You're talking about the sports stars and movie stars, you're glorifying them. But in common language, we'll say we're hearing, we're listening, and we're speaking about everything under the sun except God. Everything under the sun except spiritual realization. And as Prabhupada's saying, why would you? Because you're not interested in it. You're going to talk about what you're interested in. And therefore this verse says, for materialistic persons, they have many things to talk about. So, the world is variegated. There's so much going on here. Just if in one home, just to maintain one family, there's so many things going on. If you ask somebody, can you just call up somebody and say, can you help me do this now? And they'll say, well, I have this to do and that to do, and I have this appointment and this test, and I have to be at work early, and my wife needs this, and my children needs that. That's just normal. That's for everybody. It's like that. So there's so much going on in this world, and therefore there's so much to talk about. Just so many things are happening. New buildings are going up. Things are being developed. New discoveries. It's just amazing how much is going on. And if you're interested in these things, they can absorb your consciousness. And they do absorb your consciousness. And you know it well, and we've seen it. Some people, they just love to study and talk about specific things that are of great interest to them. Now, Prabhupada says here, the Grihamedis, being illusioned by material nature, forget everything about self-realization. So as we become absorbed in the material world, become interested in it, in hearing about it, talking about it, then self-realization, it just doesn't either seem important, we don't even think about it, and we have no interest in it, and we are just absorbed in getting ahead. And India, there's some understanding that self-realization is important, but what you find now is that people relegate self-realization to a later part of their life. So what we find is if a young person is interested in self-realization, their parents are quite upset and said, you should be interested in your studies, you should be interested in your career. Self-realization is for later in life. Because that's the idea, that later in life you retire and you dedicate yourself to spiritual life. Of course, I don't even know if the people recommending to their children that spiritual life, religion should be for later in life, if they even do it themselves. But they're very concerned if their children become Krishna conscious that they will lose interest in material life and material advancement. So they believe it's all important, and they qualify by this definition as Grihamedis. Grihamedis are not interested in self-realization. Even if they show interest, it's more socially religious interest. You have to show others to keep your status that you're religious, or you have to be religious in order to maintain your material success, because Indians know that piety brings material success. So if they show interest, often it's only to enhance their material life. So that follows this definition of Grihamedi as Prabhupada's giving here. And then Prabhupada makes a nice point. Grihamedis have many subjects to talk about, and they set aside questions of the ultimate miseries of life, namely birth, old age, disease, and death. And oftentimes, Srila Prabhupada, when he would talk to people, talk to non-devotees, he would say, basically he would say, not in the way I'm going to say it, but he would say it, look it, you're going to die, so aren't you worried about it? And you're going to die, it's like your car is going to drive off a cliff. Don't you want to stop it? Aren't you interested that this is a problem? Aren't you interested in a solution to this? For Prabhupada, it was that simplistic. For other people, who, dull as we are, it was not that anyone's really thinking about it. It's just that people accept it. Yes, we're going to die, so therefore, what's the problem? Just advance yourself while you're alive, enjoy life, progress materially, and you die, and that's it. So that's you say, an expanded form of Grihameti, where it's not even a question of later in life. You can think of religion. It's just expand your material life. And as Prabhupada says here, let's see, they forget everything about self-realization. The ultimate solution to the problems of life is to go back to Godhead. Stated in Bhagavad Gita, the miseries of material existence, birth, death, old age, and disease are removed. So they're not thinking about that. And of course, there's so many problems in this world that we have to face every day. I think disease, accidents are the most common. And the mental upsets that come from ourselves and come from others, or nature. We're always dealing with this. So Prabhupada's making the point, okay, you're dealing with this and you're fighting it, so you want to take a good solution. What's a good solution if the weather is bad? Go somewhere where the weather is good. What's the solution for birth, old age, disease, and death? Go somewhere where there isn't birth, old age, disease, and death. That's a pretty simple solution. You don't really have to worry about finding the latest cure or the latest longevity pill or the latest vitamin. Just go somewhere where you don't die. Now that sounds quite simple, easy to understand. Any child can understand it, and that's what Prabhupada's saying here. And he's saying Grihametis, they want to solve the problems within this world, and you can't solve the problem within this world because the nature of this world is it's full of problems. And you want to solve it, go somewhere where there's no problem. Okay, that's pretty simple. We can all get that, except people don't get it because they don't believe it. Or if they believe it, they don't want to give up their sense gratification to do it. Or they don't want to perform the austerity to do it. So the last thing Prabhupada says, if you want to go back to Godhead, then the process is to hear. About who? About Krishna, because you go back to Godhead by becoming attached to Krishna, and you become attached to Krishna by hearing. This is all very basic, simple stuff. This is second canto of Bhagavatam, foundational stuff. Then Prabhupada says, foolish people don't know this, so they want to hear about the name, fame of everything temporary. And although we all have this propensity to hear, they're misusing it to hear about something temporary. If you hear about this world, then your consciousness is absorbed in this world, and that means, guess what? Where do you take birth again? Yeah, you're right, you take birth in this world. How did you know that answer? You meditate on Krishna by hearing and chanting. You become attached to Krishna by hearing and chanting. When you leave this world, you're thinking of Krishna. If you hear and chant about this world, you become attached to this world. What you're thinking of at the time of death, Krishna says, yam yam vapi smaram bhava, whatever that is, that's what you become. Pretty simple stuff. Misguided, they also create some false literatures about the name, form, attributes of the ultimate truth. And then in other words, then if you get into philosophy, they just speculate about what is philosophy, who is God. And that, in a sense, almost is worse if you just don't know what God is. It's not as bad as if you have the wrong idea. So, philosophy is meant for understanding the ultimate truth, but in a materialistic society, philosophy ends up becoming a way to intellectually destroy God, or at least intellectually not have to surrender to Him. Maybe you'll accept Him, or create a God that doesn't demand surrender, or wouldn't even want it. It would create a philosophy that makes it illogical to consider that God would want anything other than for you just to be who you are, as you are, and be happy in your material existence, and that would make God happy. Yesterday we were listening to a class. Vijay Prabhu was giving class at Bhaktivedanta Manor, and he said that he didn't give the source, I've never heard this, but I really like this, that Krishna suffers when we suffer, and Why does Krishna suffer when we suffer? Because Krishna suffers knowing that we suffer, but he also knows that we have to suffer in order to come back to him, but he doesn't like that we suffer. But the suffering is required, it's a consequence of our karma, of our misdeeds, but that suffering ultimately rectifies us. But he suffers when we suffer. So, those who philosophize God away, it causes Krishna's suffering. And as they teach this idea and bring others away from God, that also causes suffering to Krishna. Krishna misses us, he wants us. So, Prabhupada ends his purport, don't become a grihameti for envying others. And if you logically look at this purport, what Prabhupada is saying is if you're not a grihasta, you are a grihameti, and if you're a grihameti, you will envy others. It's the nature of material life. Because you're trying to expand your material life, there's limited resources, someone's always going to have more than you. And you're not going to like that. And naturally you're going to envy others. You're going to want to have what others have. You're going to compete with them. So, I always feel that material consciousness, which is the basis of, you require material consciousness to engage in a material life. And if you analyze the components, you say, dissect material consciousness, what is it made out of? It's made out of components that actually cause you to be unhappy. So the very consciousness that you have to have in order to quote-unquote be happy is consciousness that causes you to be unhappy. It's quite a paradox. Here Prabhupada's saying, to be a good grihameti, and the point of being a good grihameti is to enjoy, you have to be envious or jealous. And how can you be happy if you're jealous and envious? Because if you're jealous and envious, you're not peaceful. The second chapter of the Gita, Krishna says you can't be happy if you're not peaceful. So, it's if you, what's the word, deconstruct. If you deconstruct the aspects of consciousness that people are in order to be happy, it's so interesting, because the very nature of the consciousness which we employ in making us happy is exactly what causes us to be unhappy. Our whole attempt to be happy is self-centered. How can I find pleasure? And that very consciousness causes us to be unhappy, because anyone self-absorbed is not happy. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami, it says that people are either after bhukti. Bhukti means sense gratification. Mukti means liberation. Liberation means to free yourself from birth and death, to get out of the material, because you've tried bhukti, that didn't work, so let's detach from it. Siddhi, let's become yogis and achieve mystic powers. Mystic powers, you can really, if you really want to enjoy, get mystic powers. That's, much higher. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami. Kami is just lust. Those who want to enjoy gross sense gratification. These Shakaliya Santa, they're all unhappy. They're all not peaceful. As we said, okay, if you're not peaceful, Krishna says, you won't be happy if you're not peaceful. You're disturbed. Why? Why should you be happy if you're not peaceful? Because what Krishna means by not being peaceful means there's something you don't have and it's causing you anxiety that you don't have it. And until you get it, at least you're telling yourself you won't be happy, because you're missing. You're missing something. You're incomplete. Therefore, because you're incomplete, you're feeling incomplete. You're not peaceful. Therefore, you're not happy. Mukti Mukti Siddhi Kampi Shakaliya Santa. And a devotee is nishkama. He has no desire, and therefore ataiva shanta. Krishna Bhakta nishkama. Ataiva shanta. Therefore he's shanti shanti. He doesn't want anything. It's so, in our philosophy, it's so simple, isn't it? And just taking this verse, Chaitanya Charitamrita, taking this verse of Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita is expanding by showing, what does it mean to be peaceful? It means I'm happy. And how can you really be happy unless you come to some standard of spirituality? And so when you're, like I've said so many times, when you're self-satisfied, you're not jealous. Jealousy, envy, criticism, and all comes from a lack of self-satisfaction. So lack of self-satisfaction means something I don't have that I want, something someone else has that I don't have. I'd like to be like this, but I'm not like this, and you're like that, or he's like that. I want to be like that. So now, in that desire to be that way, you become envious of others. Of course, there's a healthy aspect of wanting to be better without being envious. But we're talking here about wanting to have something which causes you to be envious of those who have it. And so you're ashanta, you can't be peaceful. You're always hankering. Therefore you become your own enemy. I want this, I'm not peaceful. If I want it, I'm not happy. When I'm shanti, peaceful, it's because I'm not hankering. When I'm not hankering, nasochiti, nakangshiti, that's Brahmabhuta. That's when Krishna says you stop hankering. Stop hankering, you'll stop lamenting. Because if you don't want it, you don't mind if you lose it. And if you're not hankering and lamenting, that's only possible when you're Brahmabhuta, when you're on the spiritual platform. Brahmabhuta prasanatma, nasochiti, nakangshiti, both. It's a symptom of being on the spiritual platform, and it is the way you get to the spiritual platform. So, now, how many of us are not hankering and not lamenting? We're hankering and lamenting because we're not Krishna conscious, because we're not fulfilled. The more you're fulfilled in Krishna consciousness, the less you will hanker for. Of course, these are residual desires, that energy, that hankering energy, that desire to have. It's just residual, it's conditioned. But still, even though it's there and it's conditioned when you're Krishna conscious, it subsides. That's how you know you're becoming Krishna conscious. It subsides more and more. You want this? Nah, I'm okay. You want that? No, I'm fine. What about this? No, I'm happy. No, I'm just happy. I can just sit here and read Bhagavatam. Yeah, that's the state you want to come to. No, I'll just sit here and chant. I'm fine. Or you give me a little service, I'll be happy. Whatever. You need this and that? No. You have a little prasadam and some service, then I'm happy. That's a devotee. It's one of the qualities of a devotee. Devotee's simple, and simple means he's happy with simple things. He doesn't need complex arrangements to make him happy. And when the devotee's happy with simple things, then all his energy can be used to serve Krishna. Now, of course, we're all different, so some of us require a little more simple things to be happy, some require less. That's our conditioning, our upbringing, or what we're used to. But still, the principle is there. We understand, okay, there's a certain threshold. If I go beyond that threshold, then my life gets complicated. Envy of others who have more. It's always a material tendency, human tendency. We should be happy that others have more. We should be satisfied with what Krishna gives us. You know, according to our past karma, Krishna gives us certain talents and He gives us certain material success. We should be happy with that. We shouldn't be hankering after the karma of others. Of course, we can always try to improve ourselves. But the main way we want to improve ourselves is improve ourselves as devotees. In other words, you advance your life materially, it hits a certain point. It's time to wake up, everyone. Hold on. I don't know why this is set for 8 o'clock. Okay. But before this happens again, why don't we just turn it off? Unless you like that music, we can hear it every day in class. Okay, 8 o'clock, there it is. Wow, amazing. 8 o'clock, you're dead now. Why would I set it for 8 o'clock? Maybe I was dead tired and I had to give class and I collapsed in the morning. It's possible. Anything's possible. Okay. Now, if you don't have any questions, I'm going to go on to another verse. I'll just put the chat on. So, Hare Krishna. Yeah, if you don't have any questions about this, this is basic, simple stuff. But I think we're all aware that a lot of times we have to go over the basic, simple stuff because we forget. Sometimes the basic, simple stuff bores us. We want to hear something we haven't heard, something esoteric, a different angle of vision. We want to go more deeply into the topic. But sometimes it's so straightforward and simple. There's nothing other than just to understand it as it is. Okay, I don't see any questions. So, of course, I think it takes you 20 seconds to hear me. So that means 20 seconds after I ask you, you have a question, you finally hear it. And then it could take you 20 seconds to a couple minutes before a question comes up. But I don't want to put any pressure on you. If you don't have a question, that's fine. I can begin reading the next verse. This is text 3, second canto, first chapter, text 3. And if questions come up anytime, you can just chat them in the chat box. Is that okay? Does that sound good? Okay, so Nidraya hridaye Nidraya hriyate naktam vyabhajena chabhavaya Deva chartehaya rajan kutumba bharanena ba. Translate. Let's read the word meanings. Nidraya, and let's see if you can get what this verse means just by hearing the word meanings. Nidraya, by sleeping. Riyate, waste. I think we got that. Waste time sleeping. Naktam, night. Waste time sleeping at night. Vyavayena, sex indulgence. Cha, also. Va, either. So, either wasting time by sleeping. Sleeping is a waste of time. Of course, one could say sleeping is not a waste of time. Why? Because sleeping is necessary. Yes, that's true. We have to sleep to maintain the body. Can't avoid that. But it's a waste of time. Why? Because what do you do while you're sleeping? Nothing. So, from the official position, sleeping is a waste of time in terms of productivity. I mean, unless you're dreaming about Krishna, then it's not a waste of time. But you can't hear and chant and serve while you're sleeping. Of course, you can say that sleeping is a service. It is. It's still a waste of time. Or, and this verse says, or, the word va means either. Cha means also. Vyabhayena chava. That means either they're sleeping, either you waste your time sleeping, or if you're not sleeping, what are you doing? All right. What do men and women do if they're not sleeping at night? Why wouldn't they be sleeping? So this verse says, either you're sleeping at night, you waste time. Riyate means waste. You waste time sleeping, or you waste time having sex. And you say, well, sex is not a waste of time because you can produce children. This verse is not really referring to sex for begetting children. That, of course, is not a waste of time. It's productive. So then the word bhaya, duration of life, diva, days, cha, and artha, economic, iha, development. So the verse is saying, what do you do at night? You sleep or engage in sex. And the word is hriyate, waste time. And you also waste time when? Diva, not diva. Diva, during the days, by what? Artha, economic development. And what else? Yeah, maintaining family members. So, let's read the verse. The lifetime of such an envious householder is passed at night, either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime, either in making money or maintaining family members. So, There's no mention here of self-realization. There is no mention that the night of the householders is spent doing kirtan, hearing Bhagavatam. No, the night is spent reading Krishna book and drinking hot milk. And the day is engaged in going to Mangalarti, chanting your rounds and so forth. That's not described here, because this verse is not describing grihastas, it's describing grihamedis. So now we're going to learn about what grihamedis do. We already know what they do, but we're going to be reminded. Purport. The present human civilization is primarily based on the principles of sleeping and sex indulgence at night, and earning money in the day and spending the same for family maintenance. Such a form of human civilization is condemned by the Bhagavad school. Why is it condemned? It is not. Sleeping isn't condemned, sex isn't condemned, earning money isn't condemned, spending money on the family is not condemned. It becomes condemned when there's no connection with Krishna, and that's all you do. Then it's condemnable. These are things that even grihastas do, but that's not their primary focus. Because human life is a combination of matter and spirit soul, the whole process of Vedic knowledge is directed at liberating the spirit soul from the contamination of matter. The knowledge concerning this is called Atma Tattva. Those men who are too materialistic are unaware of this knowledge and are more inclined to economic development for material enjoyment. Such materialistic men are called karmis, or fruitive laborers, and they are allowed regulated economic development or association of women for sex indulgence. Those who are above the karmis, that is, the jnanis, yogis, and devotees, are strictly prohibited from sex indulgence. The karmis are more or less devoid of Atma Tattva knowledge, and as such, their life is spent without spiritual profit. The human life is not meant for hard labor for economic development, nor is it meant for sex indulgence like that of the dogs and hogs. It is especially meant for making a solution to the problems of material life and the miseries thereof. So the karmis waste their valuable human life by sleeping and sex indulgence at night, and by laboring hard in the daytime to accumulate wealth. And after doing so, they try to improve the standard of materialistic life. The materialistic way of life is described herein in a nutshell, and how foolishly men waste the boon of human life is described as follows. So lately I've been reminding you that when you study Prabhupada's books, there's one theme that just keeps arising again and again and again, and it's the theme that I think made us devotees, and that is the theme that human life is meant for Krishna consciousness, and don't waste your life on anything else. And one of the problems that I see happens that after one becomes a devotee is that we forget that, and then we start engaging in activities which may be beneficial for our material life at the cost of our spiritual life. The key? I think it's over here. Hold on, everyone. It's time for a key check. Right there. One's for the front door. So it's very easy to forget the reason we became devotees. And we didn't become devotees to expand our material life, actually. We became devotees to get away from our material life. So, but we have material necessities, and many of us become devotees when we're very young, and as we get older, the material needs increase somewhat. But if they increase too much, then we become preoccupied with our material life at the cost of our spiritual life. And then we start bordering on this, so we can call ourselves grihastas. But we start looking a little more like grihamedis. I don't have time to chant my rounds. I was up late working on this. I'm trying to fit them in. So the less time we have for spiritual activities, the more we resemble grihamedis. And one of the reasons often we don't have time for spiritual life, it's not because we don't want it, it's just our material life becomes complicated. So you have to be careful about our material life. Yes? have to be very careful that it doesn't override our spiritual life. And one of the reasons it can override it is because we lose our taste for Krishna consciousness. And there is a taste for material comfort, for expanding our material life. It's an allurement, it's an illusion. It's always, the carrot is always dangling there. Maya will always try to allure us, even devotees. So, what do you do? Prabhupada's saying here, if you're a karmi, basically qualification for being a karmi is you have no knowledge of the self. You identify with the body, that's it. There's nothing beyond this life. You're not interested in anything beyond this life. You're not interested. And if you're not interested in anything beyond the life, basically, you're just interested in enjoying the body. That's it. That's your concept. I am the body, and that's it. Enjoy it, squeeze it, twist it, turn it, move it around, get things for it, make it comfortable. And that's it. That's all we have to do. And if you get enough of it, you call it happiness. You hit a certain threshold, you'll call it happy. Because happiness has been defined for us. So a lot of times we might actually think we're happy when we hit a certain platform of material success, because everyone told us when you hit that level, you'll be happy. So we hit that level, and psychologically it just might react in us to make us think that we're happy. Anyway, what we're trying to do, and what we're trying to help others understand, is that human life's a golden opportunity. And that's Prabhupada's theme. Hello everyone, human life is a golden opportunity. Stop trying to expand your material life. It will entangle you. You'll forget God, you'll forget who you are. You'll never be happy, you'll never be peaceful, and you'll never be satisfied, and you'll always be trying to get more and more and more, perpetually, not only in this life, but in other lives. And if you don't cut it out, cut it, stop it, get off the train, get off the treadmill, it's just going to continue life after life. Hello, wake up, you're sleeping, you're wasting your life, you're busy doing what? Busy doing nothing. Didn't Bob Dylan say that? They're busy doing nothing. So that's our philosophy. That's the idea. So these verses really are foundational to our philosophy. It's just like, this is just the basis. And I was talking about this lately because I was getting a sense that at this stage in the development of our Krishna conscious movement, now we've been a movement for 50 years, things are much different than they were when we started. And I would say that when we started, this idea that human life is meant for being Krishna conscious, it pervaded the blood of all the members of ISKCON. We were not at all in any way diverted from this. Not only were we not diverted, we were trying to divert everyone away from their material life. But as the movement expanded and people came to Krishna consciousness who were already situated in their material lives and trying to adapt to it, and as devotees matured and hit middle age, things started to change. And that singular focus on self-realization seemed to become a dual focus, both on expanding, trying to be Krishna conscious, at the same time trying to expand or be comfortable materially. And there's a limit in how materially comfortable you can try to be and at the same time be Krishna conscious. It has its limitations because it takes energy and it takes focus. And like we say, if it comes easily, all right, if you make one phone call and $10,000 comes, you make another phone call, 20,000 comes, okay. A few phone calls, you're doing fine. So you're living comfortably, all right. It's not taking away from your Krishna consciousness. Your wife's happy, your kids are happy. You have a nice home, nice car, all right. But your focus, your intention is to use all your time and energy in your sadhana and your service. So that's great. It doesn't become an impediment. So no one's going to argue with that. Generally, no one's going to argue with that. Well, you could argue with that also, that, well, how much do you need to spend on yourself? How much can you spend on Krishna? If you're a good devotee and you can make a few phone calls and make a lot of money, usually you'll spend a lot of money in Krishna's service. You'll build Mayapur, you'll do whatever. You'll donate to Mahatma Das's programs. Yes, you'll do whatever. That's nice. So, we encourage that. That's fantastic. Do it. Do more of it. Just don't do it at the cost of your spiritual life. So, priority. It's all about priority. It's all about balance. Priority. Krishna consciousness is your priority. The goal of life is to become Krishna conscious. If you die, and the verses will come up, that you're tested at the time of death. This is all really, 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 if you look at Prabhupada's preaching, this is ultimately all he was preaching. Hello, knock, knock, anybody home? Knock, knock, knock. Excuse me, sir, you're a human being. Did anyone tell you you're a human being? Do you know that you're different from an animal? Nobody told you that? Do you know that you can realize that you're not the body? You can connect with your eternal relation with Krishna, and at the end of this life, you can go back to God, and you'll never have to come here and struggle ever again, and you'll live this eternal, blissful life that God has created for you, which is infinitely greater and more fantastic than this life can ever possibly be, or any life you can create in this world. It's millions of times greater. And your need for love, everything behind all your actions, it's because you want love, and that need for love will never be fulfilled on the material platform. It's fulfilled in your relationship with God, and that's all waiting for you. And now that you're a human being, it's the only time, the only chance you have for it, and you can get it in this lifetime very, very easily by chanting Hare Krishna. It's never been made easier. Hello, hello, anybody home? You interested? Does this sound attractive to you? Does this ring a bell? Does this make sense? Would you like to learn more? That's the message. That's all it is. That's all we're trying to do. And most people, no, I'm not, doesn't sound interesting to me. Why don't you just be normal? Why don't you just get a job? What's wrong with you? Why do you believe all this? Why did you give up Christianity for all? This is what we get. This is Kali Yuga, dull-brained. So anyway, we also have somewhat of a dull brain ourselves. We're also suffering. We don't always realize that there's no enjoyment in this world. But in any case, this is what we're dealing with for ourselves. And we're dealing with others. But it's good to try to convince others, isn't it? It's good to try to convince others because that helps convince us. And that's why preaching is so important. So today, go out and tell somebody, excuse me, sir, any moment you could die. You're suffering, birth, old age, disease, and death. For one is born, he has to die. One who dies, he's going to be born. So many problems. You're working so hard, you can avoid all this. You're a human being, become self-realized. Tell somebody that. That will inspire you to be more Krishna conscious. Okay, so another class on the ABCs given to us in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto. Does anyone have any questions? I would like to end here. Well, we've gone for 50 minutes, 2 verses. Well, we still have 10 minutes. You want to go another verse? Okay. Let's go one more verse. We'll make an hour. Well, we should at least study for an hour, right? You're going to learn more about these materialistic people. Now, what are you supposed to think when you're reading about these pathetic, dirty, filthy karmis? Of course, I'm being sarcastic. You know what I'm getting at. What are you supposed to think? You're supposed to think, me, not them. We always say, you're a dirty, filthy karmi. No. Me, that's what I come from. That's my conditioning. We're supposed to think these verses, although they appear to be talking about materialistic persons, are actually talking about me also, because Prabhupada has told us many, many times we're not devotees, we're trying to be devotees, we're conditioned souls who have conditioned tendencies who are practicing Krishna consciousness. So here's the next verse about the conditioned souls. Deha patra kalatradishu atmasanyeshu satsyapi tesham pramata nidhanam pasyan api napashyati. This last line is beautiful. It's a great line for a song. Pasyan means to see. Api napashyati, although they see, they can't see. Is that a great line for a song? I was getting very inspired yesterday to write beautiful songs that glorify our philosophy, that express our philosophy, because you can express our philosophy poetically and it's much more digestible and acceptable for people. And here's an example of this. I don't think just writing a song that says you're not the body is what I feel would communicate, but expressing it poetically, beautifully, in a way that touches people. That's what poetry, that's what music is about. And I think if one of our devotees can do that, who's an incredible singer and performer, and could express Krishna conscious songs in a way that really touches people, it would be amazingly powerful. Even for devotees it would be powerful. Devotee is poetic, but the poetry is meant to create emotion. And if we can write poetry, well, song lyrics are not actually poetry. I mean, you can create songs out of poetry, but strictly speaking, songwriting is not writing poetry. It's a little different. Songwriting is about telling a story. You tell a story in your song. You can tell a story of your life and your realizations in Krishna consciousness. But I think it is something that's powerful, even someday when I get into my cave and have a little time. I think I should do that, and I've often thought that if I can express what I'm teaching in beautiful songs in my seminars and people sing it, it would be really good. I conceived of a CD. It's called Songs of the Seminar, which would be all the teachings of the seminar in a CD. I think it'd be fantastic. Anyway, maybe it'll happen. I don't travel with instruments, so when I'm around instruments, I create music. Anyway, I'm going back to the UK, and in the UK, a keyboard was bought for me, and that keyboard makes music and inspires me. So maybe something will come. Anyway, let's do the word meanings. Deha, body, apatya, children, kalatra, wife, adishu, and in everything in relation to them. So that's easy to understand. The body, the children, the wife, everything in relation. So the family. Atma on sanyeshu, fighting, asatsu, soldiers, fallible. So you can understand that the family and the extensions of the family are fallible soldiers. We're fighting against material nature, but you can't depend on your family to protect you from birth, old age, disease, and death. So they're called fallible soldiers. Api, in spite of tesham, all of them, pramata, too attached. Still, we become attached to them even though they can't protect us. Nidhanam. They can't protect us from what? Nidhanam, destruction. Pasyan, having been experienced, means having seen or experienced. Api, although na, does not see it. Pasyanapi na pashyati. Pasyanapi na pasyati. Pasyanapi na pasyati. Prabhupada used to sometimes, just when he was moving around his room or something, he would quote these verses, just sing them. Teha patra kalatradishu atmasanyeshu satsvapi tesham pramata nidhanam pasyanapi napasyati. Also we could do beautiful recordings of important verses, and then you would all learn these verses. Yes, all we need is time. This was one of the projects I've thought of for 20 years ago. I conceived of all these beautiful verses in our Shastra, how we should record them. It's beautiful, nice music. So when you donate to Mahatma's fund, then Mahatma will have time to do these things. Yes, especially, it looks like I'm going to be moving back to America in a year from now. So my daughter wants to go back to school, and in America I have a studio, so a recording studio. So on our property I have, you could say, a little cabin, about 250 square feet. It has an office and a recording studio. So I would love to, if I had time, I would just love to do these kinds of, put these thoughts, these verses and their translations into music. Let's read the translation. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. So, there are many great writers and philosophers who talked about vision, and vision meaning you and I see the same thing, but we're looking at the same thing, but we see things differently. So it's a visionary is one who can look at the same thing as you, but he has a different vision. He doesn't see what you see. Like you could say Walt Disney saw a bunch of pine trees in Orlando, but he saw Disney World. And you didn't see Disney World, you just saw pine trees. So he had the vision. So the enlightened soul, the self-realized soul, they see birth, old age, disease, and death. They see the temporary nature of this world. They see that nothing can protect you. Only your Krishna consciousness can protect you. And everyone else sees the same thing, and they don't see that. Pasyanapi na pashyati. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. Sufficiently experienced means that you've seen so many people have died, and still you don't see it. You don't see that you're going to die. So anyway, illusion is very strong. We know that. It's very powerful. Maya is always trying to cover us. And we're very thankful to Srila Prabhupada that he's come and he's showed us that in his own kind way that we're fools and rascals. And we accepted that. We're grateful to Krishna that he gave us the mercy that we accepted that. And just as Krishna told Arjuna, you're a fool and a rascal, and smiling while he said it, knowing that Arjuna was now going to be enlightened. As we become Krishna conscious, Prabhupada smiles on us. He's very happy. And I've often said, Prabhupada's mission is to make us Krishna conscious. And if you become Krishna conscious, you make Prabhupada happy. Because it means you're realizing what Prabhupada is teaching in his purports in these verses. And as you realize and practice what Prabhupada is teaching, he becomes happy because that's his mission. That's the order of his guru. That's why he came here. He came here for you and me. And as he sees you chanting your rounds, rising early, doing all these wonderful things in Krishna consciousness, then Prabhupada's very happy with you. He's happy because you're following his teachings. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is happy because he sent Prabhupada here to liberate you and me. And as we become Krishna conscious, he becomes happy. And then what to speak of making others Krishna conscious? Becomes really happy that you and I can help others. Yeah, we heard this amazing story yesterday. I'll end with this story. It's so sweet. It's a story about a book distributor who was very successful, but at some point he hit a roadblock. He had a dead end in the wall, and he couldn't distribute any books. And he was becoming more and more frustrated. And he decided, that's it. I'm just going to go home. I'm going to give up. I can't do this anymore. I don't know what was going on in his mind, frustrated with the movement, with the devotees, with himself. And he decided, okay, that's it. So he went out on Sankirtan, not because he wanted to be on Sankirtan, but he wanted to go home and he needed money to go home. And while he was sitting there, a lady saw, he stopped someone and he was talking to someone. And this lady saw a picture of Prabhupada in the book, and she came up to him and said something like, this man is special. This man is not ordinary man. And she was glorifying Prabhupada. And she said, give me one of those books. He was talking to another lady. He said, give me one of those books. And then she was with her daughter. She said, she told her daughter, you should take one of these books. And he was just kind of overwhelmed because he was about to give up book distribution. And he told the lady, he said, you know, actually, you've inspired me. I was about to give this up. And she said, you can't give this up because this man, he can't do it on his own. He needs your help. Wow, is that amazing? And then as she was walking away, he said, you can't give this up. You can't. He needs your help. He can't do this alone. So, yeah, very inspiring. Become convinced and then convince others. That's the process. Prabhupada needs you, needs me, needs all of us to spread Krishna consciousness. Become convinced, convince others. Thank you very much. So we'll end class here. You got exactly, wow, 1 hour and 2 seconds. We did it. We did our hour for today. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.